Hi, everyone. My name is Nick, and I'm one of CircleCI's technical success managers. I wanted to share a quick way organizations can gauge efficient use of resources and how to right size them as needed. Our jobs and workflows evolve over time, and that can be due to a multitude of reasons like introducing new features, optimizing our builds, or other means. With these types of changes, a job that once might have required an Excel resource could now just require a medium resource, for example. This is what I mean by right sizing depending on the way we're doing work as it's evolved over time. Let's talk about why this is important. In some cases, right sizing resources can mean reducing credit usage. For example, consider a job that's historically using 10% of a double Excel resource's CPU. Spotting this should lead you to test that same job on a smaller size resource, like a large, for example, to check how this affects key areas like job duration and credit consumption. On the flip side, if too much of a resource is being utilized too often, such as 100% or 90% or higher, increasing the size of that job's resource could improve its duration and or resolve some issues. Some of the most common issues or errors associated with an overutilized resource are any OOM or out of memory errors or the code 139 you might see. Additionally, if you notice the process abruptly stops or you start to see infrastructure failures, that can be a sign that you need to increase the size of your resource as well. It's important to note that this is not always due to the resource class, but it's a common cause nonetheless. Before we look at where you can monitor your resource usage, it's important to mention that if you do not explicitly set your resource class yourself, it will default to a large. We recommend always explicitly setting your resource class, even if you plan keeping it as a large anyways. This just simplifies identifying and modifying those resource classes in the future if you need to. CircleCI's resource classes have varying CPUs and RAM levels, as you can see here. These are just a handful of them. We won't spend too much time talking on the different ones, but you get the point. One of the clearest indicators of your resource needing right sizing is what percentage your job is actually utilizing of that resource. 0% utilization is the minimum it could use, with 100% of course being the max. The closer you are to 0, the more wiggle room the resource has to handle its workload, whereas the closer you are to 100, the closer that resource is to maxing itself out. There are a few different places you can track resource usage. Head over to the Insights tab in your UI and click on the project you'd like to review. So here we're going to click on our most expensive project. From there, we'll select the workflow we're interested in, and we'll notice 3 tabs, one of which being jobs. Let's select that option and see that we're presented with all the jobs associated with that workflow over a period of time that we can specify. Let's look at 30 days, for example. Click on the top level jobs drop-down icon, as we've done, and you'll see a graph that shows the resource use for that job, as well as its resource utilization trend over a period of time. You'll see its max resource usage on specific days, as well as its average for those same days. Hover over the data points to see the values for each. Additionally, you'll see metrics shown just above that graph that correspond with your chosen data range. We're able to see here the average CPU and RAM usage, as well as the max CPU and RAM usage for this job across 30 days. With this information, you can see at a high level which jobs are using a resource that provides more power than needed. Remember, larger resources consume more credits per minute than their smaller counterparts, so optimizing in this area also helps optimize your credit usage. Alternatively, locating a job that is often maxing out the resource or close to it should lead you to consider increasing that resource size to avoid future disruptions. Okay, let's look at another way you can monitor resource usage, this time for a specific job run. So let's click on the Overview tab next to Jobs and click on the most recent workflow run. Next, click on the job you'd like to inspect and there will be a resource tab within it. Here, you'll see similar data to the previously shown example, except down to a specific job level. You can see the CPU usage and RAM usage across the duration of this exact job for any amount of parallel runs on that job. The last, and my personal favorite way to monitor resource utilization, is through our new usage API. I won't walk through the setup and details of the usage API, as we recently made a video and guide just for that. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go check that out, as this API allows you to grab this exact same data I've shown you and much more, giving your team the ability to automate the process of collecting this data and visualizing it in any way you please. Here is the formal documentation as well for it, which shows some of the other return fields, but the one most relevant to our discussion today are those of the CPU and RAM utilization percentage. To sum things up, resource classes are important in making your usage of CircleCI as efficient as possible. Your workflows will evolve, and to keep your CI/CD process optimal, your resource class usage should be monitored regularly. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to comment on this article or log in at circleci.com and submit a support ticket.